Okay, hello. This is the break is over. Hello, Jacob.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Good to meet you. Good to see you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I will start now, and people will be joining. I will start your presentation. Jacob Barton is a musician and thinker from Beach, Virginia. He has studied composition with Kurt Grossman. Um, sorry, Leiderman, Timothy Bendy, Andrew Kasparov, Karim Alsam, Kurt Stallman, Edward Applebaum, and Arthur Goldschrock. Barton received the Bachelor of Music degree from Rice University in 2007, winning a BAI Student Composers Award in 2006 for Harmonic Variations in a Theme by Mozart, for Microtonal player piano in Eros 12 to 19. Since the Udderbot's conception in 2005, Barton has led workshops in recycled instruments, building an Udderbot performance. And he has commissioned, composed, and performed new microtonal and not microtonal works for the instrument. He has served on the board of AN12, and he has helped organize microtonal summer retreat intensives in the eastern and midwestern US since 2007. In 2012 and 13, he compiled the Sagittal Songbook collection of microtonal vocal songs. He currently works as a music teacher at Bach to Rock, Virginia Beach, and he's a freelance arranger and engraver. So please welcome Jacob Barton.
Hi. Well, thank you very much for having me. Uh, Please forgive my very nervous. I'm nervous. I'm not used to just filling up a long period of time with talking, but I'm just gonna see how it goes. Um, so let me see if I can share my screen. I think that would work. I'm not sure. Um, I'm just going to read off, I think. So I wanted to present about future directions for the Udderbot family of instruments. I have with me an Udderbot. Um, this is the current model as it is. Um, and it's really just a very simple do-it-yourself instrument in the way that it's been constructed. I've cut off the bottom of a glass bottle and affixed a rubber glove to the bottom with electrical tape. Um, and it sounds like this. And I can usually get like uh, a full sweep of four plus octaves. So there's one octave, second octave, third octave, and then now you can see that the water level is quite high there, but somehow it produces quite a stable tone, um, even when the water is like wiggling quite a lot. And then on this shape of bottle, I can get an altissimo register. And sometimes to about the C that's the highest C on the piano. Um, so I this all came together in 2005. I was at a summer school called the School for Designing a society where people were asked to sort of bring their desires for what a more desirable society would be, and to sort of, instead of try to figure out what society is already automatically going to be without us, try to sort of see the design of society with our desires. I brought with me a desire to invent and design instruments at that time, and I was really interested in getting microtones. So I had a whole set of bottles. Before I figured out to remove the bottom of this bottle, I had collected like 100 different bottles and was tuning them to different scales, mostly the 31 tone per octave scale, and had written an elaborate but miniature piece for about 21 of those bottles, tuned to a subset of the 31 tone scale, and was very excited about that. But then when I figured out to break the bottom off, it kind of had a destabilizing effect, because I just thought, like, wow, this is just such a simple mechanism now, and it can do so much, and I could spend a whole lifetime trying to just unpack all the directions that this could go. And in the ensuing years, mostly what I pursued was performing, and trying to get people to write music for the Udderbot. Like, does it play well with other instruments? I find it took a while to land on a particular bottle design that I was happy with, and I ended up with Corona Extra. And I mean, at the time, I didn't really even drink alcohol at all, and I've been quite frustrated with the visual implications of like an instrument that looks like this. Like, I really, like, I appreciate how accessible it has been to be able to use available materials and not have to engineer something like very fancy from a factory or something. But at the same time, but anyway, I want to get into the possible directions. Wait, sorry. So yeah, summer of 2005 was when I came up with the idea of removing the bottom, and then a friend of mine, a horn player by the name of Matt Gray, suggested putting on a glove, and it worked so well. It took to about 2010 to create the world's first Udderbot recital, and this was a recital that featured lots of microtonal compositions by people that I knew, that I just asked to write pieces. There was a 17-tone piece written for harpsichord, or that was played on MIDI harpsichord, and I found that the Udderbot could really handle 17 tones quite well. Something like that. The piece featured a lot of neutral thirds, which you find in 17. And let's see, there was also a piece by Mark Ensslin that was written for one-man band, featuring 17 different instruments, which proved quite a challenge to put together. It took several years to get the one-man band figured out, and there was a 52-tone, 3-octave set of 17 tones, tubulon, these metal tubes, and at one point they were strapped to my body. and it was just a very heavy, awkward apparatus. But I also, I'm sorry, I'm just a bit flustered here. Let me regather my thoughts. What I want to get to most is I really feel as though the Udderbot just sort of plopped in my lap as something. I see it as something that has so much potential, and this kind of bottleneck that I see here, and this idea of a bottleneck in a design process or something that's hindering flow. I feel like I've personally become that bottleneck in this Udderbot project. In that this is so many years later, and like I'm still the I'm sort of the only person like advocating for this. I think there's not a really well like organized force of people around the Udderbot, and I've tried like various online things, and also tried Udderbot ensembles and Udderbot choirs, and it just always seems like there's something not quite there, not quite holding it together. It's just like it doesn't have enough character, or there's too much ambiguity about it. And maybe I'm making too much of a leap, but I think that like the tone of the Udderbot itself, it's very unassuming. It doesn't penetrate, and in the same way, the character of the instrument, even like I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and so I have like a wide array of instruments: accordion, saxophone, trombone, and then the Udderbot just becomes like instrument number 13 on a long list of instruments. And so I don't know how to feel about it. Like there's a little bit of a calling of you know, this is my job and I have to bring this to the world. The best that I've come up with are sort of a set of ideas of further design, and ways that perhaps I was so happy early on to think like this is a complete instrument. It's finished because I can play microtonal music. That's all I wanted to do at the time, and so it was like, oh, it's all done. So in the years since, I think I've grown this list of ways in which I think it's not complete at all, and I'd like to go through those as best I can. So the first question is, well, what is the effect of using liquids other than water on the sound? So I know that different liquids have different properties. Oil might be able to move faster and enable a more virtuosic performance. I don't know. I'm not a physicist. So I want to partner with someone who knows more about the materials of liquids to see what effect that would have on the sound, the playability, and also the visual aspect. Two, I'd like to do I'd like there to be a study of the timbre of the Udderbot, and just Udderbot playing. Put it through a sonogram FFT analysis and really understand what's going on. I think, what I'm mostly getting is a sort of sinusoidal timbre with breath noise, and maybe some inharmonic overtones, but inharmonic. And so maybe there's a way to shape the Udderbot that would create more harmonic overtones, or just to be able to make something more specific there. I think there's a way, if 3D printing could be made with acoustic materials, like materials that could, I don't think we could find something like approaching the solidity of glass, but something where you could write a program where you could draw a shape and it would sweep that shape out in 360 degrees and be able to print that shape, and to be able to do just a large kind of sampling prototyping project. What are all these different shapes able to sound like? I know the basic shape is a Helmholtz resonator that, it has a thin opening at the top and then something going on in the middle, but how much leeway do we really have here to design? And then that was number 3. Number 4 is studying what's the effect of what the solid material you're making upon the sound quality. I've landed on glass a lot, and that's been a problem because the Udderbots always fall down and break, or it poses a safety risk as well, especially when working with children. So some kind of plastic. I'm not happy with the plastic bottles on the DIY project, so I don't usually recommend that. Clay could be really amazing. Metal could be quite more resonant, making it thinner, thicker. Disposable Udderbots could be a neat thing. Compostable Udderbots, totally permanent Udderbots. And then design-wise, the feasibility of affixing a mask on the outside so that the outside is shaped in any which way you want, and then that leads itself to a whole lot of artistic designs, like just imagining like a human being, could be on the outside of this, and so it just branches into questions of what an instrument is supposed to look like. Number 5 is a kind of crucial question that's been asked time and time again: quantization of pitch of the slide action. So is that possible, that there could be maybe some kind of internal staircase, like a spiral staircase, or perhaps upward facing bulbs where the water level would go above the bulb and it would trap air, and so it would create a discrete change in pitch. It'd be quite amazing if somehow this mechanism could turn into something where anyone could have sort of their favorite scales and be snapping in like sort of preset scales, like, oh, I want to play an A pentatonic, and so I grab this little plastic piece and it goes in and do 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 like that. Number 6, try to sort of flesh out the whole family of instruments. So this is what I call the alto Udderbot, and it bottoms out right around a little below middle C, kind of in the alto range. The tenor Udderbot is this wine bottle size that can be easily made out of a wine bottle. The larger you get, like the sort of the Jeroboam bass size, you run into problems where you're moving too much water, and so there's a whole kind of engineering issue where it gets larger, especially where the size of the aperture needs to be larger, and so you run out of the human's ability, like the human lung capacity. So that's where I want to create sort of a mechanically blown mechanism with compressed air, something similar to a foghorn or an organ. And where that idea led me to is number 7, which would be a bottle organ, like a slide bottle organ. I imagine an entire room kind of filled with little bottles, or like a whole graduated set of bottles that one could be in, and each one has some kind of slide mechanism, as well as being played mechanically excited air, and I almost think that it could amount to a completely novel audio diffusion device, uh, separate from, from a vibrating speaker. Um, you could somehow create an algorithm that disperses the whole spectrum of the human hearing frequency to these different bottles, assuming that they have a sort of sinusoidal timbre coming out, and that there enough of them, and they're close enough together in range that they could cover everything. So idea number 8 is an Udderbot specific fipple. So something that would clip on top of a bottle and enable somebody to play it like a recorder, where they're just directing the air, and the fipple enables you to the fipple. It means that you don't have to develop this embouchure to get it exactly right, because some people have quite a challenge doing that. And as a bonus, trying to create some kind of variable, movable fipple that allows you to change the size of the aperture, because I'm using that a lot when I play. When I play the higher notes, I close it off with my lip. And the lower ones I'm using quite a lot, so I kind of have a direction that I move when I'm playing, and so could that be sort of built into some kind of moving mouthpiece? I've done some 3D printed designs on that, and I've made some headway on that. Idea number 9 would be a bottle mouth adapter, so that you could use like a wider lipped bottle, for example, Gatorade or something like a pill bottle. So something that is able to adapt the size of any aperture to the size of a human mouth, or wherever you would want to get. The legendary idea that I have, which I don't know is even possible, would be a two-way fipple, where, like a harmonica, where you're playing in one direction and you can breathe in and get another tone. If I could play somehow a bottle, and when I'm breathing in, somehow that in-breath directs air in such a way that I'm getting a second tone, then that would it would be amazing for enabling me to play things like string parts where there aren't breaths, and just a whole more continuous style of playing. I did an adaptation of Bohuslav Martinu's Fantasy for theremin, oboe, string quartet, and piano. And so the theremin part, has some very, very, very long notes, and so I just have to take a breath and hope for the best. But it would be a very different instrument, which I don't know if we have anything like that. Idea number 11 is to look at the Udderbot's altissimo register, which it rings out in a different way in the room, or there's some different way that it it has this kind of echo, and I'm not sure why, and I want to get to the bottom of that. And there's a way that the altissimo range, when you move the water level up in the Udderbot, it moves slower than the bass, the fundamental pitch does, and so I don't understand the acoustics of that at all. And maybe there's a way of designing again the Udderbot shape that would make, for example, a stable relationship where it's 2 octaves higher or something like that. I don't know. A smaller idea, number 13, is looking more at this. I find it has less acoustic consequence, but it is pretty important in terms of playability. Is it simpler to have something without, a bunch of fingers, like just a balloon or a bladder, or even just a mitten or something? What shape is ideal? is there a best way? Number 14, is there a best way to affix the udder to the bot? Udder to the bot. I've landed on this electrical tape for many years. Struggled with. It's a very leaky design, and it always breaks down over time. And so, is there a way to make it able to like switch it very quickly? Something that's not accidentally clasped, but water tightness is key. And number 15 is designing a way to visually represent the pitch, so that you don't have to just go by ear and find the right note. The simple idea I had was, to draw like a treble clef staff with 5 lines on, and so you could just find it in terms of traditional notation, sort of. Although there is a little bit of a difference of the sound of the bottle without any lip on it versus putting a lip on it. It brings the pitch down a little bit, and so I suspect that might be different for every player. And so, but it would just be a visual aid in finding close enough the pitch to start playing. And then 16, 17, some ideas of developing a handle that improves upon the need to grip the Udderbot itself. Developing perhaps a neck strap. It's at a kind of an awkward angle where it's not low enough to really get to a neck strap, but that needs to be engineered. And that would free up a hand and also enable people who only have one hand able to play, whether they're doubling or whether they only have one hand, to be able to play. 2-player Udderbot designs is an idea that I had. Don't know much to say about that. The effect of trill keys or holes near the top of the instrument. So I tried drilling one hole here, and it made an effective trill key. And so it might be possible to have one or more of those, or possibly valves, but that does get just more complicated. I am really interested in creating variations that are tailored to those who have physical limitations that pose challenges for playing instruments other than Udderbot. So someone who, for whatever reason, can't manipulate finger holes like a flute, is this mechanism going to be easier for them to play? And looking at the possibility of mass production, it's the Udderbot has a certain charm as a do-it-yourself design, but it's also quite limited by that charm, and it only appeals to certain people. And so I know that it would have a significant gain of visibility and popularity if it looked like an instrument, and it could be, music teachers could purchase them for their students and that kind of thing. So wanting to create publications, create exercises and etudes, method books, and that kind of thing. I've always been in this awkward position because I don't want to encourage common practice music, or just to try to let this fit into that. I almost want to use it as a wedge to enable people to see more possibilities of graphic notation, perhaps, or if somebody's first musical experience was with a microtonal scale, instead of 12 tones per octave being the assumed default standard. And so I get paralyzed by all these different possibilities. There's a few more I want to walk through, but then I do want to stop for questions. The Neolithic Udderbot would be something that could have been invented using primitive materials and techniques. For example, animal parts for the bladder, and clay and pitch to stick it together. So creating an Udderbot that could have been invented and created and played thousands and thousands of years ago. Building a 3 or 4 chambered Udderbot, where it's kind of like a panpipe, but a slide panpipe, maybe with just 3 or 4 chambers so that one could try to play violin-inspired music. Designing an Udderbot that doesn't use any liquid at all, or liquid that won't spill, because of course there's always the challenge of it spilling. Something in order to make it easier to put down. Right now it's like over here, hold my Udderbot, or you have to find a corner to put it in, or some kind of base, but something built into the design where it's just easy to do. Looking at trying to run it through guitar effects pedals, figuring out the best microphone setup for it is a whole direction. I tried to get a pedal board earlier this year, and it was much more difficult than I thought it would be. And a haptic reversal Udderbot is my idea of what it would be if, instead of tensing up to get the higher notes, instead you had to like pull down. So if there was perhaps some kind of spring mechanism where the highest note was easy and free, and then you are somehow enlarging the size of the chamber. So those are a bunch of ideas, and I'm completely overwhelmed by where to go. And I appreciate your attention and listening, and I'm happy to field any questions or.
Well, thank you very much, Jacob. It's an amazing presentation. I'm myself very, very impressed. I have a few questions myself, but I would like, I mean, not only because of microtonality, but also because of this instrument and the potential that it has. But I would like to ask all the participants about any questions that you might have. I see somebody raised a dongle. Please.
Yeah, I think it's a really brilliant idea of converting the cylinder-shaped instrument to the something like a cello, which doesn't have any limit for playing any pitches and frequencies, so that you don't have any more finger holes. Instead of that, you have the water. The only issue that I think you have already mentioned that in the your further development of the instrument, number 5 or so, I think the instability of the water controlled by the rubber hand can be a little bit of an issue. So what I can think is probably you can think of, I don't want to remove the idea of this infinite possibility of this glide, like a trombone, or for example. So probably you can switch it to something like a piston or slide, which make it much more stable, so that you have this Helmholtz resonator with a piston or a slide. And I think that could appeal more to the instrumentalist or so. That's just my ideas. But other than that, this concept is really amazing, I think.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. I was surprised when kind of jiggling the instrument around that it is as stable as it is. And I found that I was able to get a nice vibrato by sort of wiggling the bottom. And then even like moving it away. And there's something about being able to kind of grip onto the solid part in the bottom while you're playing. So in the lower register, it is quite hard, but then when you move up into the upper register, having the solid thing to grip onto actually does help quite a bit to that effect. But thank you.
Wow. Any more questions around? And Jacob, are you aware of the potential commercially that you're having? Because it's a battle. I mean, it's an object that is sold millions. I mean, if a company, are you really aware? Did you ever thought that? Did you ever think that if a company gets produces a commercial with your invention, I mean, and plays a tune, a popular tune with your orchestra, and for a beer company, for any company which is battled, I mean, this can be huge, really. Uh, I mean, I wish you, I don't know if you also thought about this and if this is a goal for you, a thing for you, but I hope, I wish you all the best. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. And then when you mentioned, please, when you mentioned, because I used myself as a composer, especially for some stage works, I used battles. Sometimes the wind instruments would have just one pitch, but without water, just a bottle. And normally I used either 1 liter bottles or 2 liters, or like the bass.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, if I knew your invention, maybe I would have done something. I would have copied your instrument. I mean, I would have used your instrument. And so with, I understand. I mean, you have a lot of thoughts about a lot of concerns, everything about this instrument and some variations. What about? I'm very interested in bass battles. So, which you said
Yes.
a bottle of wine is like 3/3. And so, did you use also bigger ones than that? And yeah, okay, so it's more difficult to control probably. And then the register doesn't move so much, so the scales are smaller. But I mean, you can compensate this with more musicians actually. So, can you tell us, please, a little bit about the bass variations of Udderbot?
Yes. So the things that I have tried, um, the alto wine bottle size, or sorry, the alto beer bottle size, and then the wine bottle size takes you down to C, below middle C,
Mhm.
uh, or maybe a whole tone below, and it's a little bit more water to handle, um, but it's quite you, you have plenty of dexterity around there. Furthermore, you can still attain all the very high pitches of the smaller one. Interestingly enough, um, when it gets to be a bass size, I think that's where we would need to like start creating like instead of just be repurposing bottles that we find somewhere, actually creating an engineering um, uh, for our own purposes. But the largest one I've tried is the 5 gallon, like for distilled water jug
Yeah.
kind of thing, which gives me a kind of a contra G flat or so, because the lowest G flat on the piano, and it, it has this large aperture, and it would have to be amplified to really be heard. It's and it but it's quite limited. But that's where I think we would need something where there's a more electronic apparatus for blowing. That's mostly what I've done. But I haven't explored in the lower bass regions as much.
Mhm.
Use it mostly as a melodic instrument.
Yes. There's another question.
Yeah, just I'm curious, do you have any recordings that is done by those instruments, like Udderbot quartet or so?
So I've done many multi-tracking things, but the best link is the one for the Udderbot recital that I did in 2010, which features it in combination with many other instruments. Or were you asking just about sort of the bass instruments or just the Udderbot in general?
In general?
Okay, yeah. So I will paste this link. Is that's sort of the best I've done. And
And
there's
so
odds and ends, but they're not collected together.
these
But
are
that's
microtonal pieces.
most of them are, yes, and they're limited. They're written the tuning designation on several of them.
And may I ask you which systems, microtonal systems, did you use for these compositions?
Yes. So um, there's a solo piece for 31 equal tones, Udderbot. There was one, a duet with a dulcimer that was refretted to an overtone scale. I think it was like 41 limit overtones. Um, there's one that just uses a visual notation, just free microtonality. There's a trio for 7 equal divisions of the octave. There's a couple other free ones, and then there was an adaptation of a piece by Joseph Pearson, which was originally for soprano in the blackjack tuning, 21 out of 72 equal. And there's also a jazz piece that was written by Paul Kotheimer in 11 limit just intonation.
Yeah, we were mentioning a while ago about Vincentino, and I'm sure the vocal music from Vincentino can be really reproduced very well, relatively easily, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be a great fit.
It's amazing, and this potential for children. I mean, for children to understand how music production works, how musical instruments. I mean, I'm very impressed. Yeah. I would like to ask the
Yeah,
colleagues
thank you.
about some other questions, please. Okay. Yes, I think, yeah. And I myself, okay, I find it, okay, this is just a personal perception. I find that everything to do with glissandi, I find it very American. It fits American music. I use myself glass lights very much for guitars, for string instruments. And I think this combination of guitars and slides and Udderbot can also fit very well. Or with which instruments do you find that it can fit the best actually in your experiences, because you have so many years since 2005, right? You mentioned. I mentioned.
Yes, yes. Since 2005. I really like the sound of a choir of Utterbots or many Utterbots together, doing close harmony, much like you find in a jazz band, like a saxophone section, where the harmonies are connected. I almost think that Utterbots could be an interesting supplement to a jazz band, with all these rich timbres. Definitely works well with strings as well. There's a duo in 12 equal that is on that Utterbot recital link that I sent, called Moonbow. And I was kind of surprised to find that the Utterbot is not as resonant as the violin, and so it might have needed a boost to just match it in terms of it's not brilliant, it's not standing out.
But it's authentic. And that it has of primitiveness, which I personally like very much.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the main thing I want to test maybe next in my life is really to try to get a studio of musicians together who are trying this. I was never sure whether it was easy for me because I had studied pitch and microtones and winds so much, and so I don't know whether it would work well as an instrument for a beginner, or whether it's as hard to pick up as the violin, for example, because I wasn't coming from square one, and so there's a lot of studying the pedagogy that I want to understand better.
Well, best of luck, Jacob. Thank you very much for being with us. And we are going to continue the third block of today. And I'm moving to Orlando Zavala. Galindo. Hello, Orlando. Hola, Orlando. Orlando Zavala Galindo was born in Mexico City in 1989. He attended the National Autonomous University of Mexico, studying civil engineering. before abandoning his studies and focusing on the study of music. He was part of the symphonic orchestra of Magdalena Contreras, playing the French horn, also part of the wind band of the House of the Fine Arts Juventino Rosas, playing the clarinet, and has piano studies within the same institution. In 2011, he learned about the theory of Sonido 13 by the Mexican musician Julián Carrillo, and since then he has dedicated his time to the study of this theory. With a 2-year study in what was the house of Maestro Julián Carrillo in San Ángel, Mexico City, he used the 16 metamorphosing pianos, microtonal harps, and documents, with the previous knowledge of musical acquired and with the knowledge and technical skills as for engineering, calculus, musical physics, and management of industrial tools. In the year 2012, he began his career as a builder of microtonal instruments, resulting in xylophones and flutes in different fractions of tone. He currently teaches metal sculpture and sound sculpture at the Ajusco Medio Arts and Crafts Center in Tlalpan, Mexico City. Welcome, Orlando Zavala, please.
Hello, hi everyone. Good morning here in Mexico.
Morning.
Yeah, the origin of this instrument that I present to you today goes back to 2010. At that time, my father and I were straightening out a crashed truck chassis. I took the chisel like that, and my father hit it with a hammer, and I heard a sound somewhere nearby the area, and at that time I didn't know that sounds were harmonics. And then I took many chisels and I hung them with a straw, and I hit them with a small hammer, and that's bring me a sound, a very particular sound of each one. And that was all. And somehow the knowledge of engineering and music and a lifetime craftsman, somehow all this knowledge mixed in my brain unconsciously. And one day the idea of cutting a tube in very specific length came out, and that was like an eureka, and it was the principle of this instrument that I will bring you today. This instrument is 2 meters long, 1 meter high, and 40 centimeters wide. It's completely disassembled. It is practical for traveling. The tubes are held with a steel wire that traverses each node of each tube in order to keep the sonority. The tuning depends on the tube's length and is the hardest part of the construction due to the need of the 3 decimal precision in each cut.
Sorry, Orlando. I muted you by accident. I meant to mute. Can you unmute, please? Sorry about that. I meant to do it to somebody else, and sorry.
You hear me?
Yes. Thank you. Sorry. I don't hear you now.
You hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I will start again. The origin of this instrument goes back to 2010. At that time, my father and I were straightening out a crushed truck chassis. I took the chisel and my father hit it with a hammer. And I hear a sound somewhere nearby after the hit. I didn't know that those sounds were harmonics. So I took several chisels and hung them with threads and hit everyone with a small hammer. And every chisel had a very particular sound, an harmonic sound. And that was the main idea of cutting tops and put it together. This instrument is 2 meters long, 1 meter high, and 40 centimeters wide. It's completely disassembled. It is practical for traveling. The tubes are held with a steel wire that traverses each node of each tube in order to keep the sonority. The tuning depends on the tube's length, is the hardest part of the build due to the need of 3 decimals precision in each cut. And somehow this knowledge of engineering and musical and the skills to grab a tools, welders, and somehow this knowledge mix it up together in my brain consciously, and someday and just this idea appears like a eureka. And I remember I was working that day, and the idea come to me like a flash, and I run out by a hardware store and buy these tubes, are galvanized tubes. And his main use is for lines of electricity and wires in the houses or in the stores. And I went to a CNC 10, and I cut them with very precision with a vernier. This instrument has been presented in Casa Talavera, en la Ciudad de México, y in different festivals in the state of Morelos. And the principle of this was a one-tone xylophone in 16th of a tone. It was 16 tubes just for one tone, and that was the beginning of this. And since then, this instrument has been constantly modified for his improvement. This xylophone that I present to you today is had a division, a physical division of a 13th of a tone between each tube, resulting in 78 different sounds in the eighth. It's built with galvanized metal tubes, which give it a bright and clear sound. And its construction has been entirely made by me, from the design, the cut of the tubes, and the construction of the base. And I will present to you the sound. I will play a little piece, and I will hope to enjoy it. and that's it. That's the sound of this instrument.
Well, thank you. Amazing. Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm more than a builder than a player, but I'm sure that experienced percussionist will bring out the best of this instrument. Do you have any questions, any doubts?
Sure. If you want, we can go to the questions time. Actually, I thought your presentation could be a little longer. Would you like to play another composition?
You like? I can play another.
You have still, I mean, before we go to the question time, we still have 18 minutes. I mean, if you don't mind, enjoy it.
I will play more.
Thank you. Wow, very, muy impresionante, eh? Very impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
And you said 16th of a tone, right? 16avos de tono, ¿no?
Treceavos.
Treceavos. Vale, vale. Okay. And I mean, if I may have the first question, why, ¿por qué treceavos? Why 13th of a tone?
Like a symbolic number of the sonido 13.
Okay.
Theory.
And then I was seeing that you group them in 6 tubes together, no? Kind of. It seems from here that you group them 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also because I tried to build in 16th, but that results in 96 tubes, and that's too much. These are 78 tubes, and it longs 2 meters. And
Yes.
I was calculated that I need 3 meters long to make 16th. It's a very large instrument.
Yes, but when you mentioned 16th, I thought about Julian Carrillo when he was very young. I think it was the end of 19th century. He was doing a lot of experiments with 16th of a tone. And then with this in Brussels, with the 16th of a tone, that was a marimba. I can't remember now. The instrument he exposed at the World Exhibition. He got the gold medal in 1958, something like this. Some instruments in 16th of a tone. That was really a sensation for the world. Yeah, and I thought, okay, maybe this is why the connection with the tradition of Julian Carrillo. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Orlando. I would like to ask to the group if anyone has any questions, please. Okay, Don Griul.
Thank you so much for the beautiful demonstration. I have been always interested in the ways for using microtones, especially percussion instrument. For now, I only could think about instruments such as like the wine glasses or so. And I think the problem is of the fixed matter and the size of the tubes or those bars of vibraphones or xylophones. I think you are also instrument makers. And do you think there could be any way for us to retune those percussion instruments like a vibraphone or xylophones? For example, sometimes I've seen that some composers try to put these sticky materials on the xylophones or marimba to make the tune a little bit different. But also I heard that for the vibraphone, someone used a magnet so that it increases the weight of the bars to retune the instrument. And I think there could be some ways for us to make a built-in device in the tubes so that we can like easily retune those each tube.
Yeah, it's more easy tuning a tube than a xylophone, vibraphone, for example. And the tuning depends on the length of the tube, and you don't need add any magnet or any substance. The tube with a precision cut, the tube itself, it's tuning itself.
I mean, when it is all finished, I mean, when it is a built-in instrument, can there be any way so that the instrument can make it possible for a player or composer to retune the percussion instrument, do you think?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
With the same tube, so Orlando?
I don't have the question.
So if you can change the tune, you probably need to reset the tubes of the. Tienes que reconstruir los tubos, ¿no? Okay, so you need.
You will need to build another instrument.
Okay.
Yes,
You have to
but
saw it somehow to change the metal length.
yes,
Very
but
difficult.
if you have a set of enough tubes, maybe you can change your instrument easily, just changing the tubes. I mean, you don't have to build another instrument as long as you have the tubes, and maybe it's like those guitars with the frets that you can change actually. So maybe probably might work like this, yeah.
It will possible if you change, I mean, with a magnet that had the same weight in every tube, and then the constant keeps, and then you will change the sound of every tube, but in the same portion.
Mm.
And that is possible.
No, so you can go ahead, my friend.
One short question. Did you think about subsets, like a mode, to change the orders so it's not but did you think about these possibilities of modes like Messiaen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's when I hear that for the first time, I like that moving sounds like a contrary motion. It's very beautiful here. Like,
I think so also. Yeah.
thank you.
Beautiful sound. Yes, you have.
Yes, these sounds, I mean, it's very connected to rattles and to maraca. So it makes it really very folks music instrument, very connected to folk music. I think it's a very peculiar and really very nice timbre. So your repertoire, Orlando, can you tell us about in ensemble? How have you worked with this xylophone in ensemble, and what are your thoughts about it, and how you think it works? It bets or its potential?
That was kind of hard in an ensemble because this instrument had very little divisions, and mix it with instruments that have 12 sounds per break. It's difficult. It's like a resource, the sound of this instrument, not like the main instrument in the ensemble. Yes. It's hard, and I think he needs a very experienced percussionist to bring out his best.
Wow. Any more questions around? And also, yeah, with the ensemble, I also mean in a microtonal ensemble. What are your experiences?
I don't have to play with an ensemble. It's the only microtonal xylophone. I don't have another instruments to assemble this.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, this of the do-it-yourself is kind of, I mean, it belongs to microtonality, this part of how microtonal music is done. There's a little part that with the content, do it yourself. So you can adjust, you can build yourself whatever you need, actually, which I find it really very challenging and amazing that you can build your own instruments for microtonal music.
Yeah, thank you. I will make a vibraphone. I hope in this year.
Also, 13th of a tone.
No, I think it will not be in in relation of the tone.
Okay.
To make then the 100 sounds instrument.
And how long is it gonna be?
I think 2 meters long, but 2 levels. One
Yes.
below, one.
Okay. And so, and the total range of this vibraphone, the total range would be how many octaves, or
It will be 100 sounds.
But
per
1 octave per octave, 100 sounds, una octava, 100 sonidos.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Spanning.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about that idea, because just dividing more and more step into the octave, we need some ideas for the composers or musicians that support to create the music that belongs to that octave, that system. So when you try to make any kind of scales or tuning systems or numbers of pitches in an octave or so, I think you are following the Juan Carrillo's theory mostly, but it is very important to support those instrument with the theory, so that we understand the nature of the instrument, and then it can proliferate the compositions and then the performances, I believe.
Yeah. I think every one of us had his part on this. No, my main principle on objective goes on the construction, on the build of these instruments. But of course, I need players, I need composers, I need theoreticians of these instruments. It will be very important to work together.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Any more questions, please? Yeah, nice to have you here, Orlando. Encantado de que hayas presentado con nosotros. Muy bien, bravo.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the attention to all this process.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so we are like 1 minute and a half ahead, actually. Yeah, if there are now many questions, we can start saying hello to Jorge Echevarría. But you work together with Orlando. You work together with Jorge Echevarría?
Yeah, we're friends.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
In fact, I'm right here in his house.
Okay, so we are gonna say hello to Jorge Echevarría. And Orlando, you're now in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so we continue with Jorge Echevarría. Hello, Jorge.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, buenas tardes. Buenos días en México.
Buen día.
Jorge Echevarría was born in Echevarría Chávez, was born in Mexico City on May 6, 1957. He attended the National Autonomous University of Mexico, the School of Music, Faculty of Political Sciences of the UNAMBA in Sociology, study of the Musical Revolution Sound, Sonido 13, Sound 13 by Julián Carrillo. Master Dolores Carrillo, School of Music of the University of Durango, Free School of Music, José Vázquez in Mexico City. He has courses and workshops in ethnomusicology by National School of Music at the UNAM, electroacoustic with Maestro Jean-Etienne Marie, Library Science General Morelos, Support General for Ethnomusicology of Mexico, AC, researcher, teacher, sociocultural projects, and president of the AC Center for Studies and Documentation of Sonido 13, of the University Center for Artistic Training in Chiapas, Orchestra Transverse Flute Masters, Aztec Hope Symphony Tapachula, director and producer of Itza Kayum Group, Julian Carrillo Tech Musical Group, flutist at Durango Symphony Orchestra, folkloric ballets of Morelos, musical group Together and United, half-length film Jaime Sabines, Popol Vuh Theater Group. Please welcome Jorge Echevarría.
Okay, Julian Carrillo was a Mexican musician, outstanding composer, and brilliant interpreter, author of countless extraordinary beauty pieces. Above all, creator of Sound 13 musical system, which broke with those days known paradigm. We are Itza Kayum, integrated by Yolanda Valdez, Eliu Echevarría, and Jorge Echevarría. Today, only Yolanda and Jorge here with you. The material we will present today is based in Master Julian Carrillo's Sound 13 system, which consists in subdividing tone in 16ths. Now, between Do and Re, we have 16 sounds. This means 96 sounds per 8 instead of 12. This system counts with a numerical writing based on the use of progressive numbers as sounds involved. For today's sounds, you use numbers from for 12 sounds, you use numbers from 0 to 11. 0 is Do, 2 Re, 4 Mi, 5 Fa, 7 Sol, 9 La, 11 Z, and back to 0 Do, in tones and half tones. In 16ths, 0 is Do, 16 is Re, 32 is Mi, 40 is Fa, 56 Sol, 72 La, 88 C, and back to 0 Do. Each 16 sounds make one tone. Each 8 sounds make half tone. Each 4 sounds make quarter tone. Each 2 sounds make 8 tone, and each sound makes 16 tones. Actually, there are compositions made under this system, as well as instruments to produce micro-intervallic sounds, books, and special writing scripts like this one.
De esta forma, escribimos ahora la música, solamente una línea, y en medio de la línea vendría siendo el índice 5, hacia abajo de la línea 4, y se van poniendo unas pequeñas líneas adicionales, y ahí vamos cambiando de índices, tanto para los graves como hacia los agudos. Entonces, ya tenemos un sistema de escritura bien definido, con el cual podemos tener ya la música y poderla reproducir cuantas veces quieramos.
This composition, the one we are going to play now, is named Cañón del Sumidero, created by Eliu Echevarría, made for piano and flute in quarter tones. Okay, the next composition, Itza, was also made for piano and flute in quarter tones. This is Jorge's creation. Okay. To make the pianos produce quarter tones, we find tones using two pianos. In this case, a portable Yamaha and a core synthesizer. The portable Yamaha is fine tuned in 452.8 vibrations per second, and the core synthesizer is fine tuned in 440 vibrations per second. So there is a quarter tone difference between them. I will show you how they sound. I use my right hand up to the synthesizer and the left hand down to the portable Yamaha. So this way, playing the hands at the same time, we produce a quarter tone difference.
Cabe mencionar que el maestro Carrillo dejó 16 pianos metamorfoseadores desde tonos hasta 16 autos.
This is the way it sounds. Itza. The next composition is Edad de Soles, made for pre-Hispanic drums and quarter tone flute. Bred ancient Mexican instruments are not under 10th tone. Here we are going to make a little changes in the pianos for this song. In the last composition we are going to present today, well, it is called Círculo Cósmico. This one is made the same for quarter, tone, piano, and flute.
Voy a explicar un poquito. Nosotros hemos hecho ya varios instrumentos para microintervalos, ya para producir hasta 16avos de tono. Entre ellos...
Disculpe, Jorge, ¿quiere que vaya traduciendo para que se le pueda entender?
O si quieres traducirlo, o que como está bien, yo te lo digo,
lo traduce,
tú lo traduces. Entonces, esta flauta está modificada para producir cuartos de tono.
So the flute is modified to produce the quarter tones.
En la parte de la embocadura tiene una perforación que a la hora de abrir escapa el aire y es la que nos hace el cuarto de tono.
Ah, okay. So at the embouchure, you have this extra key responsible for producing the quarter tones.
Ajá, ahí está. Y tiene esta varilla que viene aquí, es la que abre la perforación o cierra la perforación de cuartos de tono y
So the
tiene
bar closes
combinación.
and produces the quarter tones, yeah.
Entonces, cuando tengo ocupada, por ejemplo, la mano aquí con sol sostenido, para que yo pueda dar sol sostenido un cuarto de tono, tengo que oprimir aquí con este dedo, aquí con el índice de la mano derecha.
Yeah, so this position G sharp, so you press with the right hand, so that you use this quarter tone bar.
Y si fuese con la mano derecha, por ejemplo, aquí tengo un fa, y si quiero hacer un fa, un cuarto de tono, tendría que abrirlo con la mano izquierda, la perforación de los cuartos de tono.
And sometimes, so if you have the position for an F, so you use the left hand, the small finger of the left hand, to open this bar to produce the quarter tones.
Ahora voy a tocar de sol a la, el tono.
Mm-hmm.
Ahora lo subdivido en medios tonos. Y ahora en cuartos de tono. Ahora toda la escala en cuartos de tono, 24 sonidos en la llamada octava. Perdón.
Si te puede ver, Jorge, disculpa, te podemos ver las manos.
A ver si aquí ahí me ves.
Gracias, perfecto, gracias.
Ok, ahí, a ver ahí. Descendiendo. Y obviamente, pues con esta flauta puedes tocar tonos, medios tonos y cuartos de tono. Y pues tienes pues, más posibilidades y pues puedes reproducir el sonido a voluntad pues, todo el tiempo.
Ajá.
Ahora vamos a continuar con una composición que se llama Círculo Cósmico.
¿Círculo cósmico?
Sí, Círculo Cósmico.
Okay.
Listo. Bueno. A ver, ¿quieren hacer alguna pregunta? ¿Quieren hacer alguna pregunta sobre algo?
Sí, sí. Enhorabuena. Congratulations.
Órale, gracias.
Very impressive. Do you want me to translate, Jorge? ¿Quieres que yo traduzca o Yolanda lo quiere hacer?
Okay. It's okay if you want, you can traduce, or if you want, I can read. But it's okay if you do it.
Ok, os puedo preguntar solo una cosita de organización. ¿Se os puede ver la cara, por favor? Si os podéis sentar a lo mejor.
A ver.
Sí, os veo, sí, que sois muy guapos.
A ver, me lo acerca la silla.
Gracias, sí.
Ahí está.
So, Jorge and Yolanda Echevarría, thank you very much and congratulations. I would like to ask if anyone has any questions for Jorge and Yolanda. A ver, a ver, una pregunta, no lo veo. No, es una palma, Stephen I. Y yo mientras, in between, I would like to ask you, are you living in Chiapas, in San Luis Potosí, or vives en Chiapas, en San Luis Potosí, en México?
We are living in Morelos, and the other member of the group, Elio Echevarría, is in Chiapas in this moment.
Okay, because Sumidero, Cañón del Sumidero es en Chiapa de Corzo, ¿no? Yeah.
Sí, en Chiapa de Corzo.
Yes, that song was inspired in Cañón del Sumidero in Chiapas.
Yes. Una de mis preguntas, one of my questions was about the keys. Pero ya la pregunta que yo tenía, la principal, si estaban, cómo funcionaban los cuartos de tonos, si lo hacías con digitaciones y con los labios, como lo hace mucha gente. If you could do this with the fingers and with your lips, but then you explain about this extra bar opening.
Sí.
Para abrir.
Aquí, mira, yo también he conocido gente que desde hace muchos años, algunas personas, por ejemplo, con las flautas de perforación abierta, entonces haces esto y se acerca al cuarto de tono. Entonces aquí ahorita en este caso, por ejemplo, yo puedo hacer esto. Entonces, según mi cálculo, que no es totalmente exacto, aquí porque las perforaciones puedo hacer hasta octavos de tono. Ese es el cuarto. perdón. Aquí todo es ya, por ejemplo, doy sol, un cuarto de tono, medio tono, voy intercalando, doy el tono o el sonido natural de la flauta que produce y luego oprimo ya sea con la mano derecha o con la mano izquierda la perforación de cuartos de tono y ya es la que nos hace el cuarto de tono.
Okay, gracias. Okay, let me explain in English a little bit so that people understand what you just said. So my question for him before the main question I had was about the production of the quarter tones, because I thought maybe he was doing this with the fingers and with the lips, and then he can also do it with fingers or the lips, and he can also obtain eighth of a tones, but I guess yo creo que es más preciso con la barra para abrirlo. I think it's more precise if you use.
Más preciso.
Y cuando se toca algo más virtuoso, so when you play something more virtuosistic, so I think it's more, especially more precise then. Y creo que cuando algo un poco más virtuoso es mucho más preciso. Yeah, so actually I have another question. Otra, entonces, no sé si en tu música haces muchos multifónicos, pero es una cosa que le interesa a todos los compositores hoy prácticamente con la flauta. So my question now for Jorge is about multiphonics and if having this quarter tone bar extra, if you have more possibilities with multiphones. Entonces, teniendo esta barra para los cuartos de tono, Jorge, ¿tiene más posibilidades para los multifonos, multifónicos? ¿Nos podrías hablar un poquito, por favor?
Pues, como te comentaba hace rato, con este es más fácil porque, como dices, es más preciso y te da más posibilidades para hacer, como tú dices, muchos sonidos. Y obviamente con el efecto que hace, pues sí que hace una polifonía. Pero creo que lo puedes hacer con cualquier otra flauta, pero claro que con la cuestión de la llave, de la barra, como le dices tú, tienes mucho más precisión porque yo conozco, te digo, gente que toca el saxofón, que toca diferentes instrumentos de viento y con diferentes posiciones, o en el caso de la flauta, si es de perforación, entonces puedes hacer tapas medio hoyo y se cambia el sonido como cercano al cuarto de tono. Pero si quieres tocar cosas rápidas y precisas,
Yes.
es un poco difícil porque no puedes estar totalmente atinando o solamente que tengas muchísima práctica, pero aún así, por ejemplo, teniendo los 12 sonidos, debes de tener una digitación complicada, buena. Cuando tienes ya los cuartos de tono, pues obviamente tienes que tener más digitación. Pero si estoy tapando medios tonos, en este caso los medios hoyos, te digo, en algunas ocasiones yo estoy haciendo cuartos de tono y voy tapando la media perforación. Entonces, por eso a veces se oyen intervalos más pequeños. Pero no me atrevo a decir que están exactamente, porque en algunas ocasiones, por la rapidez, caigo un poco más abierto, un poco más cerrado, pero más sin embargo con la otra forma ya no tienes fiebre. Aquí, por ejemplo, toca rápido, vas dando los cuartos de tono, en cambio ya con las perforaciones, aquí nada más es destapando las perforaciones de la flauta, pero ya con la llave de cuartos de tono,
Thank you. Okay,
Sí.
entonces para conseguir, yeah, so Jorge was just explaining, continued explaining about using the bar for the quarter tones and using the quarter tones just with the fingerings. Entonces, para hacer acordes multifónicos, hay algunas posiciones, no sé si estás familiarizado con ese tipo de técnicas. Es muy diferente con la barra nueva. Is it different with the bar?
Fíjate que yo desde hace muchos años tengo una amiga que también es flautista. Ella tocó por mucho tiempo con Mario Lavista. No sé si lo conociste a Mario Lavista. Fue
No.
un músico aquí de los más contemporáneos que le llaman música. En aquel tiempo le decían música electroacústica, que hacían pues, muchos efectos y todo el estilo, digamos, John Cage, algo parecido. Entonces ella manejaba mucho, ¿no? Que hacía una posición y sí llegas a sonar hasta 2 o 3 sonidos con una sola o unas posiciones simultáneos.
Yes.
Ella le decía armonías. Pero yo, música, digo, los instrumentos de aliento son melódicos. Entonces, por ejemplo, el intervalo que había de un sonido a otro, a veces excedía hasta la octava. Entonces eso, pues se oye bonito, no voy a decir que no, pero cuando se excede muchas veces más de la octava, por la misma consecuencia de los tubos, llega a haber un cambio de vibración. O sea, se puede estar, ya no sería el duplo de vibración, sino puede ser más. Hay muchos instrumentos, por ejemplo, cuando llegas al do del índice 8, se oye más agudo todavía. Por la ley del nodo, con todos los tubos, hay que trabajar mucho con la ley del nodo para los tubos, porque no está al 100 en los instrumentos que tenemos, tienen deficiencias basándonos en la ley del nodo.
Okay.
Entonces,
¿puedes traducir un poquito, Jorge, para que se te entienda? Que no, nadie entiende español. Puedo. Yeah, so Jorge is explaining about multiphonics, that in his compositions he's not really very much into multiphonics. He knows them, but he doesn't need them if the distance between the notes in the multiphonics is more than an octave. So he prefers to use the quarter tones and to use the flute in a melodic way. He was explaining. Por favor. Sí, ya lo expliqué.
Ok, sí, entonces habría que trabajar un poquito más todavía, pero pues ya sabes que para todo este tipo de cosas pues tienes que investigar, y desafortunadamente pues aquí en nuestro país, a pesar de que tenemos un gran legado por lo que hizo el maestro Julián Carrillo, pues en este caso las personas que tienen el acervo de Carrillo, que es en la Secretaría de Cultura de San Luis Potosí,
sí.
No abren las puertas para poder hacer este trabajo y seguir desarrollando, ¿no? Porque el maestro Carrillo lo dejó muchísimo, pero yo creo que todos los que seguimos con este mundo de la música y que estamos pues, queriendo manifestarnos por más sonidos, pues, tenemos que trabajar.
Okay. Esto en inglés también. Okay, so Jorge is saying what it's been said more times at the Symposium. Ya se mencionó esta situación en el simposio en otras ocasiones, that it's very difficult to reach the legacy of Julián Carrillo and to continue with his work and with the piano metaforseados. Estos pianos están todavía en San Luis Potosí en algún sitio. So these pianos are somewhere in San Luis Potosí. Are they available for researchers? ¿Y están al alcance de investigadores los pianos?
No, desafortunadamente, no sé, como que tomaron un paternalismo, diría yo, que no dejan que ni los veas. Por ejemplo, yo, esos pianos, todo el acervo de Carrillo, cuando yo estudiaba con Lolita, pues estaba a nuestro alcance. Con Lolita podíamos llegar y queríamos el piano que fuera, lo agarrábamos en los libros, las partituras, incluso ella hasta nos regalaba libros y todo, y a todo mundo que quisiera se le facilitaba.
Okay.
Ahora en la actualidad, hasta para que te den una partitura tienes que mandar un oficio y hacer una serie de trámites. Pero es bien curioso aquí, fíjate que aquí existe un efecto en México que decimos que es el malinchismo, que
sí, lo conozco de la Malinche, sí.
Si viene un extranjero, le abren la puerta y los dejan que vean los instrumentos, incluso luego hasta los tocan desafinados, que para mí eso pues, es totalmente incorrecto. Pero cuando llegan jóvenes músicos de aquí de nuestro país que quieren acercarse a los instrumentos, les ponen muchas trabas. Ese es el problema.
Vale, voy a traducir esto que es importante. So, Jorge was saying, Lolita es la señora Dolores Carrillo, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Dolores Carrillo, la hija de Julián.
Sí.
So, when Jorge started with Lolita Carrillo or Dolores Carrillo, the students were able to access the piano metaforceados, so Julián Carrillo's pianos, but he's saying that today it's very difficult to access them, to access any legacy music scores or anything, and this is a big problem a lot of researchers have today in Mexico. Bueno, yo creo que any questions around, creo que voy a preguntar a ver si hay alguien más que quiera preguntar, porque ya estamos con la hora, creo que sí, sí. Nos pasamos un minuto, no pasa absolutamente nada. Y no veo a nadie que quiera preguntar algo, a lo mejor se intimidaron un poco. Maybe some participants got intimidated because of the language, quizá por el lenguaje se intimidaron un poquito. Ya, encantado de vuestra presentación. Thank you so much for being with us, for sharing your compositions and your ideas with Sonido 13. Y bueno, toda la suerte del mundo, con muchos éxitos con vuestros proyectos. Lots of success with your projects, and thank you so much for being with us. Y enhorabuena y encantados de teneros aquí con nosotros. Thank you so much.
Buena noche allá.
Buenas tardes, buenas noches. Bye bye.
Adiós.
Adiós. Bye bye. Thank you.